The stones of Puglia breathe differently. They carry a weight older than memory, pressing their silence into walls that have seen centuries rise and fall. And yet, within their stillness, one hears possibility, a whisper of what might be reshaped, reborn, and lived again. His name is Andrew Trotter, an architect, a designer, and above all, a man who listens to space, to light, to what a building has endured and what it longs to become. Born far from southern Italy's sunburnt soil, Trotter has always been a traveler between worlds. From the rigor of architectural training to the tenderness of objects shaped by hand. His work is known for its restraint, for a language that seems more like listening than speaking. In Puglia, he found not just a setting, but a dialogue between history and the modern, between the demands of daily life and the poetics of simplicity. This palazzo, now standing in quiet dignity in a small Puglian town, was not always luminous. When Trotter first stepped into it, the building's voice was muffled, its grandeur dulled by years of neglect. Yet he felt immediately that it was alive, waiting for someone who could translate its past into a future. The story of this palazzo begins not with ambition, but with curiosity. Trotter had been traveling through Puglia, as many outsiders do, drawn to the light and the dry, honey-colored landscapes that stretch endlessly toward the horizon. He had already worked on rural retreats and masseries scattered among olive groves, places where simplicity was not a lack, but a richness. Yet, the towns themselves had always intrigued him, their piazzas humming with local rhythms, their streets twisting in a kind of organic geometry born of centuries. It was during one such walk, wandering aimlessly, that he noticed the palazzo. Its facade was weary, shutters askew, the paint a pale memory of brighter days. Some windows were sealed, others revealed glimpses of forgotten rooms. It was the sort of place many passed by without a glance, too ordinary to be grand, too grand to be ordinary. For Trotter, it was a pause in the street, a quiet pull. The decision to purchase it was less about practicality than about faith. Faith that spaces speak if one is willing to hear. He saw beyond the decay to the rhythms of its arches, the proportions of its staircases, the promise of its lofty ceilings. A palazzo like this was never just a house. It was a civic presence, a building meant to hold memory for a community. To inhabit it meant entering into its lineage. Transformation, in this case, did not mean erasure. Trotter's approach is never about overwriting history, but about distilling it, stripping away noise until the essence remains clear. The process was patient, and at times painstaking. Walls were peeled back, layers of paint and plaster revealing patterns of wear, ghost lines of past renovations, even fragments of fresco hidden beneath decades of dust. The challenge was balance. How much should be restored? How much should be left imperfect? The old doors carried scars, wood worn thin where countless hands had pushed them open. To replace them would be to lose those gestures. To preserve them required a delicate understanding of repair. Tiles cracked unevenly across the floor, stone staircases sagged with age, iron railings were rusted to a near ornamental patina. Trotter chose not to chase newness, but to reveal continuity. White limewash returned the walls to a state of luminous simplicity, amplifying the natural light that poured in through tall windows. Vaulted ceilings were allowed to remain textured, their uneven surfaces catching shadows like soft brush strokes. Furnishings were kept minimal, their shapes spare yet soulful, so that the architecture itself could breathe. The contrasts became the heart of the transformation. Rough plaster beside smooth stone, antique furniture alongside clean-lined tables of oak. muted linens softening the austerity of space. Every intervention was a conversation between then and now, never loud, never forced. The Palazzo became both a vessel of memory and a frame for contemporary living. In some rooms, Trotter allowed emptiness to linger. A corner where nothing but a chair and a shaft of light meet can be as powerful as a decorated salon. These pauses were intentional. The building was not to be filled, but to be honored. What makes this palazzo unique is not only its design, but its atmosphere. Step inside, and one feels a quiet continuity with centuries past. The coolness of stone beneath the feet, the resonance of voices in high-ceilinged rooms, the play of light filtered through shutters. These are sensations that tether the present to a deeper rhythm. There is also the cultural weight of place. Puglia is not a region of excess. Its beauty is elemental, its traditions rooted in labor and land, olive harvests, stone masonry, the daily rituals of community. This palazzo, despite its formality, belongs to that same earth. Trotter's design does not seek to elevate it into an object of prestige, but to return it to humility, a place of gathering, of stillness, of simple grandeur. In many ways, the project becomes less about architecture than about listening to time itself. The building speaks through its weathered materials, its irregularities, its persistent survival. To live here would be to accept an inheritance, not of possessions, but of perspective. That life can be slower, quieter, yet richer in meaning. And perhaps this is what drew Trotter most deeply. For an architect, there is always the temptation to impose vision. But in Puglia, the landscape and its structures resist domination. They insist on partnership. They require patience. They remind us that beauty is not in perfection, but in endurance. Now, as the palazzo stands ready for another chapter, its walls hold both memory and possibility. A reminder that architecture is not only the shaping of space, but the shaping of time itself, where the past and the present dwell together in luminous silence.